Good morning from WKYT News. I'm Bill Bryant, and we welcome you to Kentucky Newsmakers. Later, State Agriculture Commissioner Ryan Quarles will join us. He'll talk about why he has become the first statewide office holder to announce that he will be running again in 2019. Commissioner Ryan Quarles with us later. But first on Kentucky Newsmakers, a state representative who was elected in the Republican wave last November that saw the GOP take control of the State House for the first time in nearly a century. Representative Wesley Morgan is the first Republican to represent the Richmond area in Frankfort in modern times. In his first months in office, he's been no stranger to controversy. Morgan is a businessman who owns 4 liquor stores. He filed 6 bills in the legislature related to alcohol sales. He also tried to get another bill passed that would have freed his own boat being held by a marina over a payment dispute. We'll ask him about that. Recently, Morgan was accused by police of illegally transporting alcohol. That's one of the laws that Morgan tried to address and one that was declared unconstitutional by a judge in another case. Morgan ran as a staunch conservative and a supporter of Governor Matt Bevin. Representative Morgan joining us this morning. We appreciate you coming in, sir.
Thank you, Bill.
Let's get right to this most current situation, the accusation that you were illegally transporting alcohol between your stores. This is product, I take it wholesale product, that you had purchased for your stores and that you were moving between your businesses. Is that the case?
That is correct.
And what would you have had to have done to comply with the state law?
Well, I thought I was complying with the state law. I have a court order here that where we had they had rendered a decision in the Clay County Court that declared it unconstitutional. And
this is when you, in other words, you were stopped for the same thing, and this was a couple of years ago.
In 2015.
Yes, and you go to court and you won that case.
Yes.
And what you are about to read to us is the judge's decision in that case.
Yes.
And he said what?
The judge says that it is hereby ordered and adjudged that the court finds KRS 243-200, paragraph 13, unconstitutional as it pertains to preventing licensed alcohol beverage store operators from moving distilled spirits from one commonly owned store to another across county lines. This restriction is unreasonable restraint on the free flow of commerce and serves no legitimate state interest and does not impact and or interfere with the payment of tax revenue. As such, this statute is unconstitutional in violation of the defendant's rights to due process and equal protection under the law and the right to be free from the absolute and arbitrary power of the state as guaranteed by sections 1, 2, and 3 of the Kentucky Constitution.
That was the order by which he dismissed that case in 2015.
That is correct.
So you then assume that that law is no longer in force?
Well, the ABC didn't appeal it. The ABC could have appealed this decision if they had wanted to take it to a higher court and get it removed, get it overturned.
So then you tried to have that changed early in your days in the state legislature?
No, that's not correct.
Did you not file a bill that
I did.
to address this?
I did, and I will explain that in just a second. But this law, once this court decision was rendered, I had a discussion with the then Director of Enforcement of Alcohol Beverage Control, who indicated to me that they were not going to enforce this law any longer because of this court decision, which therefore I thought was there was no misconception or no unlawfulness of it.
Do you think other multi-store owners also transport their alcohol?
Oh, there's no question. They do it. And that's another reason for what you mentioned earlier about that I did present a bill. But here's what the difference was on this bill. When the court declared it unconstitutional, it sort of left it out as open law because it had just been that section was thrown out. The ABC proposed and passed in House Bill 183 on page 85. They say it is legal to do this, but with the ABC permission. Now, my bill went a little bit stronger because I felt like that in order for the state to remain in control of the movement of alcohol, my bill proposed that they establish a new license, that you had to actually purchase a license from the ABC, that you maintain adequate records of anything that you move, that you identify the vehicle that you're moving it in, and that you keep a manifesto on that vehicle in case you're stopped by law enforcement, that you would be able to show them what you did.
You probably understand the reasoning behind this law as well as anybody. Is that the concern? Is that why the law is there, is to be able to track it?
Well, the first thing is that this is an old law that was put in place in order to control bootlegging. We used to have 30 counties wet, 90 counties dry. Now we have 90 counties wet, 30 counties dry. And they had to have a means to stop someone who was coming to liquor stores and purchasing large quantities, going into a dry option territory and selling that at retail. And of course not paying any taxes on it other than buying it from the retailer. So that was the crux of the whole law to begin with.
How do you plan to proceed on this case?
On this particular case, you know, I won't discuss it because it hasn't been adjudicated yet. I will say this, that we will propose this unconstitutional order from Clay County as our defense, and we will present the prior ABC Director of Enforcement as evidence in that case if we go to court, which I don't know we will or won't. But whatever the court decides, then that is the way that I will proceed from this point forward. But I was under the distinct impression that there was not an issue here, but we do need, it is a hole that we do need to address legislation for.
So in other words, at this point, in order to comply with the state law, a liquor store operator would have to do what?
He just not move anything.
Once it is brought in by a distributor, it would...
But that only benefits one person. That's the wholesalers. What the wholesalers do is that, number one, and this is another bill that I introduced, they're not delivering to these outlying locations like Barberville and Manchester and Irvin. They're only delivering every 2 weeks. Then if they're out of something, if they're out of a particular brand, then it's another 2 weeks before you can get it. So you have a large investment in these stores, $1 million each. And you have a large investment and you can't get the product because they're either out of it. But then if you split up a case, for example, if you have a case of 48 bottles of something and you're selling 12 at this store and 12 at this store and 12 at this and 12 at this and over a year, then you would have to pay that wholesaler $2 a bottle more for those split case bottles, which would raise your price by $2. This is a consumer, you know, just charging the consumer more for the product.
Do you see all of these bills as consumer protection that you filed? As you know, you have been roundly criticized since you went into the legislature for filing bills that some may say benefited you as the owner of liquor stores, 6 bills in total. Why not get somebody else to sponsor legislation?
Well,
like
to
that?
be quite honest with you, I would have, but I didn't know to do that. I just thought, you know, that most people who go to the legislature, it's a citizen legislature, and I didn't know that it would be a problem. And in fact, it ended up not being a problem that I filed the bills because I went and got clearance through the ethics. John Schaaf with the legislative ethics. I got every one of these approved, including the boat one.
Does the appearance of it now strike you differently now that you have seen the reaction from the public?
I'll have to admit that I probably won't file another liquor bill. That I probably shouldn't have done that. However, you know, we go in this state and we pretend to be the bourbon capital of the world. But there's some people who act like that because you're in the alcohol business, that you're a second-class citizen. I should have as much right to file a bill related to alcohol industry because that's what I know. I'm an ex-ATF agent. I'm an ex-IRS criminal investigator. And I have been in the liquor business for 36 years, not including my family who was in the liquor business all my life.
But you're saying you are unlikely now to file another
I'm very unlikely
bill.
to file another one and be criticized for it, yes.
What are a couple of the other bills that you filed that you wanted to see passed in this session?
Well,
and I assume that you will still be for if you can get somebody else now to carry it.
I don't really see the point in that, but because of the criticism, you know, let's take Dr. Alvarado. You know how many bills Dr. Alvarado filed related to doctors? No one said a word. So the lawyers filing things and voting on bills that reduced or increased, judgment interest. So every person up there, Jonathan Schell, who's a great floor leader, he files bills related to farming. He's a farmer. So I don't know why that just because it's alcohol that it's excluded and you're not allowed to other people.
What's the other key piece?
Well, we had the House Bill 155, which I mentioned a while ago, which would establish the new license for transporting between stores. But then House Bill 134, and all it did is require the wholesalers to deliver on a timely basis. And every 2 weeks is not on a timely basis.
All right.
And another one was the distribution rights. Back up until the early 90s, we had multiple wholesalers in the state of Kentucky. Most of those wholesalers had joint distribution rights on products, which created a competition among wholesalers. Then we had this large company from Miami, Florida come in and buy most of those out, and the others were bought out by Republic National Distributing Company. So those two companies control exclusives on all these brands. And I'll give you an example.
They charge what they want to?
They charge what they want to. Crown Royal 750, it says, went from $9.99 a 750 to $29.99 a 750 since all this has happened. And you got to give them credit. I mean, if I had this exclusive, I wouldn't want it to be changed either.
All right. I want to ask you about one more bill that you filed, and then we'll take a break and then ask you about a couple of other things. But you filed one that would keep a marina from being allowed to enforce a lien on a boat that it has in its possession, even if there's money owed to the marina. You were involved at the time in a dispute revolving around $28,000 and a boat. Again, as you know,
that's all misconception.
Okay.
All right. The first thing is the bill does not relate to what you owe or do not owe. Has no bearing whatsoever. The bill that was passed a couple of years ago simply gave a marina owner the authority to impound your personal property if he had a dispute and says you owe him something. Okay? You may not owe it to him, but if he says you owe it to him, then he can impound your boat until you go to the court, until you get a court order to get the boat released. Now, what happened was, and how this all come about, was I was going to sell my boat to Senator Chris Girdler. And Senator Girdler and I had made a deal, and we had been trying to sell my boat for about 5 years. And 2 years prior to this, I actually had a contract for Lee's Ford Marina to sell my boat. But it had been expired for over 2 years. So I'm the one who said to J.D. Hamilton at Lee's Ford Marina, I said, I think I've sold my boat to Chris Girdler. And he says, well, then you owe me a real estate commission. I said, no, I don't owe you a real estate commission. He said, yes, you do. And I said, no, I don't. He said, I got a contract there. I said, you had a contract 2 years ago. He said, oh, no, there's a small print in there that says that if you don't notify me in writing, that this goes perpetually.
All right, we don't want to litigate that case here, but has that all now been worked out?
No, it's still, we're waiting, we're actually getting ready to file to get the boat back.
All right, let's take a break. I want to talk to you about your first session of the legislature, what you see coming up next year. We're with Wesley Morgan, State Representative of Madison County. We're back on Kentucky Newsmakers in just a moment. Ryan Quarles coming later, the State Ag Commissioner. Welcome back to Kentucky Newsmakers on WKYT. We are delighted you're with us today as we continue our visit with State Representative Wesley Morgan, the Republican of Richmond. We've been talking with him about some legislation that he filed earlier this year, some of which he has been criticized for, many people saying it was self-serving. You had a protest in front of your store. Was that disruptive?
Yes. No.
Okay.
10 people.
Now, you have said that in these cases, if you file something, that it involves other people, not just yourself.
That's correct.
And in the case of the boat being
there was one individual, there's numerous others, though, that was retired on Social Security. He had a boat. He made a deal with the marina owner that he would do all the repair work at the marina if he would be allowed to leave his boat there. They ended up falling out. What he did, he ended up taking the guy and chaining his boat to the marina. He's retired on Social Security, so he doesn't have very much money, and told him he owed him $45,000, which was about half the price of the boat. and he's adjudicating that in court also. But I took all this before the Legislative Ethics Commission. They told me as long as it involved more people than me, then it was ethical.
All right, well, we'll see where all this goes. Let's talk just for a moment here about the session that has just ended. Of course, there were several pieces of legislation, right to work, prevailing wage, abortion restrictions, other things. What was the most important thing that happened in that session in your view?
Well, obviously right to work, which is really just doing worlds of benefit to the state of Kentucky, was probably the biggest thing. And then secondly, to me, I'm pro-life, and the 20-week abortion bill was really something that I wanted to see happen. There was other pieces of legislation that we wanted. In fact, I either sponsored or co-sponsored 78 bills in this session of the legislature. There have been people says that all I filed was liquor laws, which is absolutely not true, and it can be proven. So 78 bills. Some of them made it, some of them didn't. Opioids. I co-sponsored a bill on drug use. I co-sponsored the Blue Lives Matter that protected police officers. So there are numerous, like I said, 78 of them, and 8 of them had something to do with liquor.
Governor Matt Bevin indicates he wants to call a special legislative session this year on tax and pension reform. He has also said the state needs more revenue. Do you see lawmakers being in the mood to collect more from taxpayers?
The only way that I would vote for a tax increase, and it's not really a tax increase, is we got to do away with the state income tax. I mean, we have Texas and Florida and Wyoming and Tennessee that's doing very well with no state income tax. I think it's everything against liberty in order to have to tell the state every year what your financial dealings are. I think that's not in liberty.
Do you have a highest priority for the 2018 session that's coming up?
Well, I'll have to look at everything and see where we're at. But obviously, hopefully we can change some of these liquor laws, because the governor has indicated that he wants this red tape reduction. A lot of our liquor laws are annotated. They go back to 1935. They don't mean anything anymore. In fact, you cannot actually go a day without violating a liquor law if you really look at it. If you buy a bottle of something in Richmond and you drive it to Berea, you violated law.
How much of just a few seconds left, how much of a learning experience has this been for you?
A great learning experience, but I've never dreamed of being under such attack. And really what they want me to do is resign, so that has really nothing to do with liquor. It's about right to work. It's about abortion. It's about constitutional carry. It's about all the things that the liberals really do not want to have.
Representative Morgan, thanks for coming. Appreciate it.
I appreciate it.
We'll be back in just a moment with State Agriculture Commissioner Ryan Quarles, who is already declaring for re-election. Back in a moment. Welcome back to Kentucky Newsmakers here on WKYT. Kentucky Agriculture Commissioner Ryan Quarles is the first of the current statewide constitutional office holders to say he is definitely running for re-election in 2019. Quarles is a farmer and a lawyer who is also a state representative from Georgetown. He's been championing the Kentucky Proud program and talking about how Kentucky can do even more to take what it grows and raises and turn that into a bigger part of the state's economy. Thanks for coming in. We appreciate it.
Glad to be back.
Well, why are you already saying that you're running for re-election? Are you convinced that you're not going to be able to get done what you hope to get done in one term?
Well, there's a lot of work to be done, but as a farm kid from central Kentucky, I absolutely love my job. Being Commissioner of Agriculture has been a dream of mine, and Billy Ray Smith, former Ag Commissioner, was Commissioner when I was working in shows and fairs, and as a young kid at the Kentucky State Fair, I got to see him in action. I love my job. We're making a difference, and that there's work to be done.
People may not realize the breadth of responsibilities of the Agriculture Commissioner. One of those is that you go out and inspect the gasoline pumps, and you're doing that right now, not only to see that they're calibrated, but you're looking for something else.
That's right. A lot of people are surprised to know that the Department of Agriculture is more than just agriculture. We're also the state's largest regulatory agency. We have a lot of different regulations that we enforce, and one of them is weights and measurements, and one of those those is inspecting our 60,000 gas pumps across Kentucky. We're also on the lookout for thieves and criminals who are installing skimmers, which steal credit card identity, which is responsible for $3 billion in lost credit card theft each year. And so we're on the lookout, and we're going to hopefully crack down on consumer fraud here in Kentucky.
Once your inspectors have been there and have taken a look at those, can they certify them as skimmer-free?
We provide the service on top of our regular inspection. The gas station owners right now, a lot of them are looking for these skimmers on their own, usually once a week or even sometimes once a day. And so whenever we find a skimmer, all we do is we leave it alone, contact local law enforcement, and they conduct an investigation.
The Kentucky Proud program is a marketing program that was started by your predecessor and some years ago.
Started by Billy Ray Smith and then continued with Richie Farmer and with Commissioner Comer, and now it's our state's largest marketing program, and about $500 million each year is sold underneath Kentucky Proud.
As we understand, it's kind of an envy of some other states. They keep calling you to ask you what you're doing there, right?
That's right. And so one thing that Kentucky has that a lot of Kentuckians are very prideful of our state, and we're proud of helping support local agribusinesses and local farmers. And so when you see that Kentucky Proud symbol, you know that you're supporting the local economy. And other states are looking towards us, as with other agricultural programs that we administer, on how we do it.
May is Beef Month, and you're calling attention to that. People may also not recognize just what a large sector of the agricultural economy the beef industry is in the Commonwealth.
In Kentucky, beef is big business. We have over 38,000 beef producers across our state, and that includes about half of all of our farms have some sort of animal livestock on it. And each year, that accounts for about $700 million of our economy. However, it is tough times right now for beef producers. Prices are down quite a bit. But when you talk to every county judge, every local official, they know that when the cattle market is hurting, their local economy is hurting as well. But I have a lot of optimism here, because Kentucky has more beef cattle than any other state east of Mississippi. And as we speak, we're using the Kentucky Proud program, and we are in discussions with some of our major grocery stores and trying to get more Kentucky beef located and available on our shelves in our grocery stores.
In so many businesses, there is consolidation in this world today, and we've seen that certainly in the agriculture business as well. Is there a place for family farming or small operators going forward?
Well, here in Kentucky, we all about family farms. 95% of our farms, the 76,000 farms in our state, 95% of them are owned and operated by families. And I say it's one of our strengths, is that in our agricultural economy, unlike those states in the Midwest that maybe have 3 or 4 different crops, here we have a lot of diversity. We grow everything from horses to hemp, and we can grow everything from apples to zucchinis and everything in between, because we focus on quality, and we don't need a lot of acreage to do that.
Our tourism numbers have just come in. They're very encouraging. From last year, the largest jump in 2016 since 2005. The Kentucky Derby has been a success again, and you push what you call agritourism. Now, do people go out and tour farms? Is that what it essentially comes down to?
They do. So we have over 500 agritourism venues across our state, and we're proud to work with the tourism folks to help promote what's best about Kentucky agriculture. And that includes everything from you-pick pumpkin patches to going out and get some apple cider from maybe a Kevin Evans up the road. But it also includes the bourbon industry and our over 70 farm wineries across the state. And so I'm encouraged that more people from out of state are coming to Kentucky, and that Kentucky's agriculture economic impact is over $45 billion each year.
You were telling me more of our corn is going to bourbon production now.
That's right. So each year we try to emphasize with our distilleries to buy more Kentucky corn. People are into the local food movement. And right now we're predicting between 15 and 20 million bushels of Kentucky corn to be liquefied into bourbon. And as the bourbon industry continues to grow, so does opportunity for Kentucky farmers. And right now, the amount of corn that goes into our bourbon industry constitutes about 8% of our total corn output, which is good news for our farmers across the state.
There are a couple of major capital construction construction projects that are going on that are agriculture related. One of those opened up this last week.
That's right. And so we have the newest animal diagnostics lab in the country located in Christian County. It opened up last week, and this really helps us with disease prevention. So whenever there's an issue out there, we had a bird flu outbreak earlier this year, it's important that we have those scientists and those researchers and a qualified lab that can make sure that we help prevent disease from spreading. We also have what's called the Grain Center for Excellence through the University of Kentucky being built out in Princeton, Kentucky, which will be not just an asset for Kentucky agriculture, but for the entire region. And some of the research that's already been conducted there has been replicated across the United States and across the world, particularly with no-till corn. And so we're very happy that people are choosing to invest in Kentucky agriculture and giving us those strategic resources that will continue to make Kentucky the envy of the rest of our agriculture economy.
How do we do more? You know, you're indicating you want 6 more years in office essentially by running for re-election and having 2 more years in this term. How can Kentucky do more with its agriculture?
Well, we are trying to shift the focus of people thinking of agriculture as plows, cows, and sows, when in fact we are a major economic driver in Kentucky's economy. I mentioned that we are responsible for about $45 billion in total economic impact across the state. Our entire GDP of Kentucky is $190 billion, and so we're responsible for a major portion of that. And when a farmer decides to hire or an agribusiness decides to locate in Kentucky, that's no different than Toyota expanding their lines or a new business coming here like Brady Aluminum. And so we like to celebrate the economic impact in Kentucky. There are other areas that we can do better on. Right now we're focused on international trade at Department of Agriculture. I've been active with the Trump Agriculture Advisory Committee and with our new Secretary of Agriculture, Sonny Perdue, looking for strategic and surgical ways that Kentucky can be effective with bilateral negotiations with other countries.
Commissioner Quarles, thanks for coming. Appreciate it very much.
Glad to be here.
Thank you for joining us for this edition of Kentucky Newsmakers. We certainly hope you make it a good week ahead. Be sure to join us early for WKYT This Morning, and make it a great week.